Welcome back to We Should Start a Podcast, the only podcast within a podcast. Each week, we'll attempt to create the next hit audio show as we pitch our brightest ideas for pods about anything and everything. But more often than not, pretty much nothing. I am your host, Podmaster and Commander Dino, and joining me, as always, are my good friends, Podmaster Chief Danders, and Davey Hogan is here too. Let's get into it.
We should start a podcast.
Welcome back to We Should Start a Podcast. Welcome back, boys. How the hell are you, Danders?
Spiffy, good to see you. Yeah, how are you? Having a good week?
Yeah, great week. You look spiffy. Did you get a haircut?
I did get a haircut this week. Yeah, I get them through my workplace now.
No way.
Yeah, it's this kind of like cut corners thing where they one of the perks is called Class Pass, and it's intended for like exercise classes and stuff.
I have that too.
Yeah, Class
you can
Pass.
get haircuts with that shit.
If you look through it, maybe it's probably the same in Vancouver. You can get like beauty treatments and stuff, and if you're careful, like if you're picking your way through it, it's easier for women, but they have some barber options up there. So it's a bit mad really to think about it, but yeah, that's why I'm looking so fresh these days.
Dave, you better have something interesting to say, because that was a doozy.
Yeah.
Nothing quite as interesting. A bit hairy this morning. Was playing poker last night for the first time. My first time playing it.
I thought you were like saying literally you were a bit hairy this morning. You were feeling a bit insecure because Danders got a haircut and you were like a little bit more hairy.
I thought you were on about hair as well, yeah.
No, but that was an interesting segue that I didn't intend to do. I'm doing, but yeah, no. Played poker last night for the first time. Like, do you guys play it? Have you played it?
Do you mean for the first time in a while? For the first time
ever? Like I've never
Really?
played. I've never played a full game of poker ever
For
until
real?
last night. Yeah.
What are you, gay?
No.
Probably. How did it go?
I did alright. The two people that were the most confident going in lost their money immediately
fun.
and needed to buy back in. But yeah, $5 buy-in, so it wasn't too saucy. But it was fun. It was nice. It dragged on though, man. Fucking 2 hours into it, and it was like, yeah, I'm a bit sick of it at this stage. I'd rather just lose my $5.
It is a marathon, 100%. Yeah, it's an evening's festivities. Do you know what I mean? You get in there and you do other stuff while you're getting into it. You know what I mean? You have a drink or whatever, and you plan to do it for the rest of the time you're there. You know, it isn't like a pop in and pop out and whatever.
Good crack though. So yeah, poker, bottle of wine, some edibles. Fun. Nice evening.
How bad? Who did you play with?
Few of the boys here.
Irish lads?
Yeah, all
Who else?
Irish lads. You know, Connor, Keane, Mark, Scan.
You know Connor Key and Mark Scan.
Yeah,
don't you,
yeah.
Danders?
John Jacob Jingleheimer.
I'm sure all of our readers will know as well.
Connor Kean, Mark Scan, Lashif. Who else was there?
What's Javier Bardem's character's name again?
That was a different movie though, wasn't it?
Oh, different movie, of course, yeah. But I mean, same universe.
Yeah. He was so good in that. Javier Bardem.
That's
He was
my
so like
favorite
creepy.
film. He's phenomenal.
So
in that
good.
film. What's his name? De Silva or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Unbelievable. Love
Yeah,
that.
fantastic. Chilling. Absolutely chilling.
Would you guys have played poker much? Play poker much?
We played a bit growing up, not a huge amount, but like there was often a casual game in our teenhood.
Yeah.
I certainly don't play it much these days.
Yeah. And I still get Facebook notifications that Danders has won a big pot on Texas Zynga Hold'em poker on Facebook when that was a big thing.
You get notification literally because I
No,
don't.
I'm joking. I'm joking. That and Speed Racer.
Yeah, Speed Racer.
Speed Racer was another one of those dumb Facebook games that
Classic.
I used to play.
They were fun though.
Anyone who's like, I don't know,
Legit.
was born even a little bit after us wouldn't know what these are. I think they had a very short shelf life, those Facebook games.
Yeah. That was a moment in time, and I think that like we've touched on it in previous pods, but like the times have changed so quickly. There was such a clear cutoff like a couple of years after us that like I find it hard to relate to a lot of the stuff that the next generation is just standard for them. And I don't know how it kind of happened so markedly, but like I don't know. I was thinking about it earlier today. Like normally it's kind of a more of a subtle meander, but the next gen,
Meander.
like, huh?
I said, sorry, it was bad. I said me dander.
Okay. Why don't we just put this one on the shelf and just keep it?
There's going to be some more great content like that coming up. What were you saying, Dunders?
Oh,
No, do carry on.
It's not worth it.
I ruined it. I'm sorry.
It's not worth
I suck. I'm a terrible host.
Let's get into the
And
plot.
that terrible host on the mic is me, Dino. Nothing really to plug, nothing really going on, except there's a new character that I've been working on a little bit for the pod, just workshopping a little bit. Okay, you going to hear me out in this one?
Give us a preview.
It's Joey Deschanel. So it's kind of like a quirky Italian-American guy. He shows up with like Jersey Shore house and like huge thrifted orange overalls with like a couple of bowling pins, maybe an obscure instrument and a typewriter. What do you think?
Yeah, needs a little work, I think. But,
He's like,
Orange
hey,
overalls.
it's Joey Deschanel. I
Right.
volunteer at the Exotic Bird Hospital. Sometimes I take the bird steroids, that kind of
I
stuff. I
think
don't know.
you need more Zoe Deschanel in there. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it's a bit of a
Yeah.
bit of a flat gag.
Mm.
Maybe put a reference from what's that great film called? 500 Days of Summer.
Oh, wait, here we go. Hey, it's Joey Deschanel. This Joseph Gordon-Levitt guy is a stage 5 clinger on the boardwalk.
Okay, yeah.
How about that? Yeah.
That's good.
GTL could be like Jim Tanning lute. Like Joey Deschanel could play the lute. That would
Okay.
be something that Zoe might. I think maybe like for the new girl guys.
Yeah.
I think Joey Deschanel would be a pretty chill roommate in comparison. I think
For
they'd actually
sure.
love him.
Yeah. That's right. Not much more new girl stuff to riff with, really.
No.
To be fair.
I don't really have much more Joey. This is Joey Deschanel here. Man,
Maybe you should have given it a thought before you introduced the character. I don't.
It literally just popped into my head, and I was like, "This is pretty
gold.
good character.
This is gold.
This is Hollywood gold. This is what's going to take our podcast to the next level."
But now you've got to embody Joey Deschanel from here on in, So.
Joey Deschanel.
You've got the
I
look
hope that's
down.
not offensive to anyone out there.
Only the real Joey Deschanel. That's mine.
I'm either offending Italian American guys or manic pixie dream girls, either or
Both, yeah.
or both.
They're two groups you don't want to fuck with, to be honest.
That's why I imagine them as a mashup. That's why they're so scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Have we prepared anything for this podcast? Or?
Are we prepared? Yeah, we have Joey Deschanel.
Joey Deschanel is good.
This podcast isn't usually about Joey Deschanel, and once again, I encourage anyone who's listening to this the first time to remember that it's usually not this fucking dumb. So please give us another shot. What we usually talk about on this podcast is trying to create a golden podcast
we
idea.
go.
We're trying to come up with a podcast idea to go #1 on all the charts, Spotify, Apple Music, you name it.
iTunes.
This show that we have here is a little bit of a placeholder. This isn't that podcast, but we're trying to get the idea for that podcast. So on this show, we're just pitching, we're podding, we're trying to get that idea. Is that fair to say, boys?
Yeah, so the way the format really goes for the first timers, which wouldn't surprise me if many of you are first timers, but basically we pitch an idea for a podcast and then we run the whole episode as if we're doing that whole podcast mid-season. Then we come back out and we give it a rating and we see how it looks. Is that right?
That is absolutely right. If you don't know what we're talking about, forget about
Forget
it.
about it, Joey.
Yeah, it's Joey Deschanel. And with that wonderful new character, we are now ready to hear from our Podmaster of the Week, Davey. And for anyone who's listening for the first time, when we say Podmaster, that is the person who is pitching their podcast idea for the week. So before Davey pitches, I will remind everyone how this show works. Davey will be pitching his latest podcast idea and taking us through a complete trial episode. Following the podcast within a podcast, colloquially known as a podception, we will collectively critique the show based on a classic podcast rating system. But before I pitch, I am legally obligated to remind all the pod goblins out there that WSSAP never do any research as to whether these podcast ideas exist in the real world. So by accessing the content of this podcast, including the information presented, opinions expressed, and creative elements, you are hereby forfeiting rights to any intellectual property you may already hold in relation to your podcast. And our lawyers are scouring the web daily for this shit, so don't even fucking try it. Look, it all goes to say that I don't want to see any fucking Joey Deschanel impressions floating around on TikTok.
That's our bit.
That's our bit. That's our IP. And with that in mind, I will now let Davey introduce us to his latest podcast. What do you have for us, Davey?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This week's podcast is called Rhythm and Podcasting. Any ideas what it could possibly be about, Danders?
Be about rhythm and podcasting. I think it sounds like one of those Ron Still does what it says on the tin type things.
Yeah.
I don't have anything more insightful to, like, let's see. Rhythm. So it's about, beats, and podcasting, long form discussions.
You sound like an alien impersonating a human trying to figure out what things humans do.
Podcast, listening to people speaking through your earphones. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Danders. Very insightful. Dino, any idea what it could be about? What could be about?
Well, I think if anyone's been listening to this up until this point in the podcast, you can tell that we have zero rhythm in our podcasting. It's something we definitely should work on. So maybe you've signed us up to some sort of internet masterclass on how to
dance class,
generate rhythm in podcasting.
Online salsa classes.
Sharpen our skills. Salsa classes? It could be salsa classes.
Yeah. Could be.
Yeah.
That's a great idea for a podcast. Down the line, maybe.
Just salsa?
Just salsa.
Salsa, the podcast.
But then we could eat a lot of salsa. It could be a bit, right?
Oh,
right.
Okay.
And then obviously it's the sauce of the week. Salsa means sauce. It's direct translation. So.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Forget Dave's idea. Danders, what do you have for us this week?
We're talking All-Star Salsa Week. Salsa Verde, you name it.
All right, well, thanks for that, guys. Let's get into it.
Okay, I assume we were very wrong.
Yeah. Well, no, Danders got near the nail in his ramblings.
Danders was like Googling definition of rhythm.
Podcast.
What is podcast? Very good, very good. With that, guys, we are ready to dive into this week's podception of the week, which is, of course, Rhythm and Podcasting.
What's happening? Welcome to Rhythm and Podcasting. For this episode, we have a few classic show segments lined up for you, including This Week in Hip Hop, Let's Discuss, and Let Me Explain, followed by one or two more if we have the time. This week, I am joined by Spin Master Dino J and OG Danders. I am your host, Davey the Don. Let's get into it. I know we hear that every week, but it's still pretty sick.
Thank you.
Anyway, let's kick it off. This week in hip hop, this warm-up segment where we give you some info on what's happening in the world of rap and hip hop this week. We had a few releases this week. One of the ones that I was looking out for was a new release from Benny the Butcher and 38 Spesh, Stabbed and Shot 2. This, of course, is a follow-up project to the first Stabbed and Shot project that was released by the two New York rappers back in 2018. The original project had a light enough feature list, including Jadakiss and Styles P, but we have a few more in this project, namely Dave East, Busta Rhymes, Harry Fraud, Ransom, O.T. The Real, and that's just to name a few. The work ethic by the Black Soprano family and the Griselda affiliates and all that, it's pretty immense. Have you guys been keeping up with that group or that side of hip hop at all recently?
I'd say keeping up would be a stretch, but yeah, they're grafters for sure, man. They put in that work for sure.
Mm-hmm. You just see a new album pop up every single week almost.
Oh, 100%. One of them.
Whether it's Rome Streets or one of them anyways, yeah.
And yeah, they really embody that New York vibe, that like gangster, gritty New York vibe, the whole lot of it.
Bringing it back.
It's pretty sick.
The boom back into a new era.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Alchemist has been a major part of that as well.
Huge, man. He's like carving out this corner of hip hop for these boys, and
Prolific.
and as well,
Absolutely prolific.
conductor as well is stuck in there doing a lot of production. The conductors, I'm hearing more and more conductor beats every day. It's great to see that style of hip hop kind of coming to the forefront again.
And for people out there, Dave, who maybe aren't that well versed in the hip hop world, can you describe what this resurgence is? Like, what is this genre of rap music that you're talking about?
It's just how do I even describe it? It's East Coast. It's gritty. It's grimy. It's kind of it's funny. Emer, my fiance describes it as ominous hip hop beats. she just, that she just doesn't like to listen.
That's
to
my favorite kind of music. I type that into YouTube daily and log out.
Just this kind of steady, gritty, bringing like it sounds cliche, but like kind of bringing fucking real gangster rap back in a way, because obviously gangster rap just kind of took a bit of a dip maybe between 2010 and 2020 when we had a lot of more commercial stuff come to the forefront. But it's great.
Yeah, especially in the second half of the decade.
Yeah, definitely. Which is, do you know what I mean? Like these things come and go in waves, and I have no problem with that. But it's nice to see it coming back
and done properly. Like it isn't like a derivative sound. It's very raw and original. You know. Yeah.
Do we think we're gonna ever see a Griselda project again, or do you think that ship has sailed?
Oh, never say never. I mean, Pink Floyd got back together. Do you know? I mean, flipping Oasis are back together for do you know? Like people have ostensibly long careers to make changes, do different stuff, come back and test different things differently. So I wouldn't. I'm not holding out hope for anytime soon, but I wouldn't be surprised if something drops again.
I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. I mean, I don't think there's been any falling out.
No, I don't believe so either. Not that we've heard of it anyway. But you know, some things just run their course. Some groups run their course. Some collaborations run their course. The Griselda.
I heard that. I heard One Direction had a falling out.
Oh,
bad taste.
There we go.
Bad taste.
There we go.
That was good. That was a good one. I'm sorry. Maybe it's a bit too soon.
That was quite clever.
Knowing the editing process for this, it'll be like
it'll be a while.
It'll be a while before this comes out. So hopefully when it comes out, yeah.
Jesus, yeah, that's actually crazy. I did see a meme of just a picture of Beyonce standing at a balcony, looking down, like she was the one that pushed him over, because you know the whole conspiracy with him having.
No, I don't know. What's that?
He's supposedly there's supposed to be links to him speaking out about Diddy.
Really?
I know about that, but like he did have like a big impact for like his original. Oh God! Oh my God! I can't believe it! I can't believe I didn't mean that. I can't believe I didn't mean that. But yeah, like what was this thing about Naomi Campbell? Him kind of like turning her down and like being bullshit about her in public, being like lol, as if like, you know, I'm way above Naomi Campbell, and everyone's like, little man, sit down, you know what I mean? But yeah, like he did have an oversized influence, I would say, is what I'm trying to get at. But then also, he didn't really know himself. Like, this is not a Liam Payne podcast, bless the guy. But like, I felt like I never felt an authentic voice in his music he was doing on solo stuff, because he was just kind of being pulled around by label stuff, and it just didn't really sound like he came on at 16, sang nice, pretty little songs, and then he was sort of doing sex albums and stuff. It just sounded weird and shit, you know. Anyway, move on. sorry to all of the fans, and all respects paid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wish I could provide more on that. I can't say I know more about I know anything really about Liam Payne, other than the fact that he was a member of One Direction,
and he has a kid with.
Oh, he does.
That's the thing that weirds me out. The fact that the first time she saw him, yeah, like Cheryl Cole saw him at 14, because I saw like he was, because he's British and I'm in the UK, like he was rolling on the news when it happened, and they mentioned that again. He's 14 when he first auditions, and like they play the clip, and she's like, I fucking him. Do you know what I mean? Like proper. And then he can't come back the next year because they up the legal limit to 16. So then he comes back at 16, and then they do the whole, you know, One Direction swoop that year. And like she had hooks on him from day one, you know, and then like a couple of short years later, I just found that super creepy. Not necessarily that there was this massive gulf in age, but that he was so young when they first like got introduced to each other. That just kind of creeped me out a bit.
Yikes.
Yeah. Celebrities to be creepy though, man. Like you've seen clips of Justin Bieber getting hit on by older women when he was quite young in the spotlight.
For sure. No, for
Very
sure.
strange. Very strange.
Fame would make a person go crazy, you know?
Yeah, people don't really see it at the time. If it's when it's a woman doing it to a younger boy, if it was the other way around, it might be a little more creepy. But anyway, that is not what this podcast is about, even remotely close to what this podcast is about. So.
Yeah, take us back.
let's
Reel
get off
us in,
that.
Dave.
Let's get off that. Okay. So yeah, a few releases. The Shot and Stab 2 was quite good. A few more things dropped this week. Yeet had a new album called Lifestyle. A few features on that. Lil Durk, Kodak Black, Don Toliver. I didn't give that a listen on account of being over 30 years of age. Did you guys give it a spin or?
I do not really care about Yeet, to be honest, at all. I've listened to his music a little bit. It doesn't resonate with me at all.
Doesn't do it for you. How about you, Denders?
No, I didn't. Shot and Stab 2 was nice with it, though. Like, I thought it was really good, actually. I listened to the first couple of tracks, and I thought I had it pegged. It felt very 2010s to me, but, like, best of. And then I thought it was a very versatile project. Like, they turn around quite a bit. They move around quite a bit. And they had good mastery of the sounds they're using. I really enjoyed the features. Like, I thought it was a good record.
Yeah, man. I hate having to go back to it now, but each of them have a very specific sound to their voice. So like one of the things that you could distinguish between, let's say, Southern hip hop and East Coast hip hop back in the day in the 90s and 2000s was that the Southern hip hop, there was so much emphasis on trying to be unique and create your own sound. And you can see that in artists like Outkast, Future, and a lot of other Southern artists. And you didn't really see that as much with New York hip hop or with like East Coast hip hop. They were kind of all rocking the same beats, all rocking the same kind of content, all rocking the same kind of sound in their music. But now with this new kind of resurgence of New York and East Coast hip hop with the Griselda affiliates and Benny the Butcher and 38 Special and stuff, it's very unique. You hear the start of the verse, you can hear that it's Benny the Butcher, you hear it's 38 Special, you hear it's Rock Marciano.
Boom, 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 boom.
Exactly. You hear those little ad libs. You know exactly who it is, and it makes it way more unique and way more impactful.
And obviously, we cannot speak about New York hip hop, Rock Marciano, all these guys without paying our respects to the late Ka, died during the week.
Bless.
Underground hip hop legend.
I didn't realize that. Fucking hell, that's awful.
One of the best lyricists of our era. I don't know how, to be honest.
Jeez.
And besides being a great artist that, I'll put my hands up, I didn't actually listen to all that much until he passed, and I started getting into the catalog now, and it's amazing. It's like right up my alley. But he was also a New York firefighter.
Oh, wow,
one of
that's
the first
cool.
responders on 9/11.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
54, I believe, years old
That's
now.
really
and
interesting.
passed, yeah. R.I.P.
I wonder, like, I was just about to, like, just separately going to say a bunch of those firefighters died from, like, you know, complications from that event. Like, I don't know, is it smoke or whatever? Do you know what I mean? So that's mad that, you know, he's died in his 50s and we don't know why. I mean, obviously it could have been anything, but yeah.
I should also say R.I.P. Liam Payne as well. I mean, I know we joke around, but that's also very tragic and sad.
Yeah, absolutely.
R.I.P. K and R.I.P. Liam Payne. So yeah, no listens on the Yeet album. That's kind of expected, to be honest. Some honorable mentions. Ian's new album called Goodbye Horses features Lil Yachty, Chief Keef. No, not a fan.
Ian is the worst. Ian is like the worst possible thing that could happen to hip hop. His previous work before this was just like a blatant ripoff of Playboi Carti, and this album I feel is a blatant ripoff of Yeet. Get this guy out of here.
This is the scathing kind of reviews that I was hoping would pop up.
Get this guy out of here.
You familiar with it, Ian Danders?
No, I can't pretend that I am, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, I don't keep my ear to the ground like that anymore. You know what I mean?
It's Ian McKellen started a rap.
So yeah, also we have.
I'm sorry, I thought there was like a pause for like, is there a Lord of the Rings joke or like, or like there's got to be like an old gay British man joke. There's got to be something. Everyone just let it run. And that's just
It's open to interpretation. And with that, concludes our This Week in Hip Hop segment. We will be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Rhythm and Podcasting. We just finished up our This Week in Hip Hop. Had some nice new releases. Let's move into the next segment. This segment is called Let's Discuss. For the newer listeners of the show, let me break it down how this works. I will pose a weighted question to the panel and they will be tasked with discussing what they believe the answer to be. They have no information on this segment ahead of time, so it's all on the spot. A little bit of freestyle for the boys. This week's Let's Discuss is, who do you think to be the most influential figure in hip hop from the noughties? So just to be clear, we're looking at artists that peaked in the noughties between 00 and 2010. And now that we've obviously had 14-ish years to kind of see the impact of these artists over a long period of time, who do you think to be one of the or the most influential figure from hip hop in the noughties?
Before we get into it, are you saying there's a correct answer? It's kind of sounded like it sounded.
No. So just to be clear, there are no.
And that answer is the Insane Clown Posse.
Just to be clear, there are no stats and figures associated with this. There is no right or wrong answer. This is purely because I feel like, despite us all being hip hop fans, we all have a different kind of take and different tastes within the hip hop spectrum. So it's always interesting to have these kind of conversations. So, like, are there any artists that come to mind initially?
Yeah, straight off the bat.
Kanye West.
Well, yeah, it's a good one. But, like, when Dino said Insane Clown Posse, I was already on Eminem in my head. Because, like, just think about influence. Oh, our boy's frozen. Sorry, my boy froze for a while.
Mic drop. It's Kanye. Leave the pod.
Kanye's a good shout, but like,
he's the best artist of all time. Best artist of all time.
Like, noughties are Eminem's peak years, obviously. You know, that was his rise and fall. Oh, Dino, you sad sack. Dino got beef with. He's not a Slim fan, but my Dave and I are anyway. But certainly, like, whether you like him or lump him, you can't ignore or deny that the noughties, he was influential beyond influence. Like, he had, you know, the farthest reach. And if you think about other noughties rappers, like, they were either not like isolated to the noughties, or they aren't really around anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think about people who are still around, like Nas and Snoop, and they were kind of more 90s. And then I think about people like Timbaland and like, I don't know who else was, I mean, you know, Lupe or whatever, and they're still kind of plug-in, but like not really doing much, I would say. So if you give me the noughties, Eminem was just everything at the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, at the time, like I say, rise and fall. Like, through that 10 years, he had some certified classics, he had some controversy, he had some rehabilitation, and then he was back at it again. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's the answer for me.
So it's interesting. So I kind of guessed that would be your answer, and I agree wholeheartedly. Eminem is probably the most influential, if you were to ask me, on a statistics level. It's interesting you mentioned Nas, though. I wouldn't consider Nas having had been influential on the culture. He obviously made some fantastic music, and no. I know.
Let him finish the sentence.
No. I'm talking about. I don't think he influenced like a change in the culture and a change in the dynamic of the music industry around hip hop for years to follow. He obviously made one of the most classic albums of all time, but did that change anything? And like, I'll hit you who my suggestion is, and you'll kind of get more of a feel for what I'm trying to say here. So my suggestion for this particular Let's Discuss is, I believe 50 Cent was highly influential on the culture, and obviously his peak was around 2003, 4, whenever Get Rich or Die Trying came out. So a few points on this. 50 Cent pioneered the mixtape culture that we have today. It was one of the leading reasons why Get Rich or Die Trying was so successful and kind of was so hyped up ahead of its release. I don't believe anybody came out the gate, like obviously Eminem was huge at the time, but I don't think anybody came out the gate with such a bang that 50 Cent did. Everything that surrounded him, that's like including fashion, TV, movies, video games. It was like a huge explosion. We went from not really knowing who he is or who he was internationally to kids in fucking Cork City wearing G-Unit runners and G-Unit hoodies.
Hanging upside down.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't I had G-Unit gear when I was fucking 14, 15.
Dave, I don't think that 50 Cent had a fashion influence that much per se compared to other people.
But if you talk about influence that he had, like that kind of glossy, sexy, polished sort of sound about like really confident and whatever, that was different to the rappers who were before him in terms of influencing the sound. I felt like it was interesting when he said that. I think that Nas was super influential on the lyricists for, conscious rap for decades to come. But
more so in the 90s. I mean, I think the landscape of hip hop changed when he dropped Illmatic.
Yeah, that's true.
If you listen to the music before Illmatic and the music after, I mean, we're not talking about the 90s, we're talking about the 2000s. But if we're talking about the 2000s, Kanye versus 50 Cent, there's no question. Kanye fucking wipes him in influence.
Especially because you got to be under Dino's bonnet there by saying about the fashion, because Dino's a fashion forward fellow, and Dino's also a big Ye fan.
Well, the point I was trying to make with the fashion wasn't necessarily him. Like, I understand Kanye obviously has far stronger foothold in the fashion industry coming from hip hop. I understand that. But the point I'm trying to make is that before 50 Cent, rappers weren't selling shoes. Rappers weren't selling hoodies with G-Unit on fucking hats and shit. Little white kids weren't flocking to wear fucking G-Unit shoes or any clothing line created and pushed by a rapper before 50 Cent. And the point that I'm trying to make is that after that avenue was open for rappers. The fashion avenue was open for rappers. The video game avenue was open for rappers. I suppose Tupac was in movies, but if we're talking biopics and stuff, Get Rich or Die Trying opened up TV to a much larger scale for rappers. Video games, fucking vitamin water, all these avenues that 50 Cent kind of really broke into upon his explosion made that not necessarily possible, but made it like a viable avenue for rappers to explode into. That's the point I'm trying to make. Sure. I'm not saying 50 Cent is more fashionable than Kanye West.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in terms of influence. Anyways, 50 Cent seems to be a much better person than Kanye is now. So I'll give you that much.
Is Kanye your answer? Do you want to speak to that on influence for a minute?
Yeah, like I think he changed the sound of rap music today. We wouldn't have the way rap music sounds today without the likes of Kanye and probably like Lil Wayne too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
From a production standpoint, he changed the game. I think from a fashion standpoint, he also changed the game. He made rap music cool for people who didn't like rap music. It was a bit more accessible, a bit more polished sounds. The fashion wasn't as like gangster rap oriented,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It was probably good timing though, because as mentioned, 50 Cent was huge when he came out the gate, but that the gangster rap didn't necessarily fit or suit everybody that wanted to like and listen to rap music. So Kanye West obviously opened a platform for that. What was the pop polo shirts and fucking backpacks and shit like that.
Yeah.
Which was a completely different thing to what 50 Cent and G-Unit were kind of pushing.
50 Cent, I think, is the only person in the world who can pull off those square tank tops.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could almost say that Kanye was like rebelling against that sort of aesthetic. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And
right.
was influential in that way. Like his kind of sonic experimentation in production has 100% shaped the way hip hop is now, which is mainstream pop music now. Do you know what I mean? Because of how he played around and the confidence that he had in doing that was obviously second to none. I mean, like, I'm not a massive Kanye fan in the way Dino is. I have a huge amount of respect for his records. And some of them are like absolute classics and favorites of mine. Like the way Take Care is one of my favorite ever albums, even though I'm really not a Drake fan, like for reasons. Like I think he can spit a cold bar, but like that album had me. And Kanye, like He had a few of those, but I'm not his guy. Like definitely not. But I can't deny that guy had a proper influence. Like I think they're three good answers for different reasons, and maybe it kind of depends on how you interpret the question. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Like Danders, it's like Danders prefers white guys.
Yeah. That's really how you interpret the question.
I'm not a Kanye or 50 Cent guy. You know?
I just don't like guys like that. Okay.
Eminem. No, there's a good guy.
He seems like a stand-up guy. Yeah.
Beastie Boys, great guys. Great group of guys.
I should point out that my co-stars are white as well.
Very, very white. But yeah, that's. I kind of feel like, just to be clear as well, when I mentioned Nas as well, I was coming from the angle of my points on 50 Cent and creating those extra lanes and streams that kind of he broke into, and also created that for rappers and artists to come after him.
The reason I excluded Nas was purely because he was 90s, but if someone saying he didn't have influence is
crazy.
Hilarious. Like,
No, I don't. Sorry, if it just in case it sound like that, I don't say he didn't have influence, but I feel like, to my points, I think 50 Cent had a much larger influence on the climate and the environment and the culture for the foreseeable decade after that because of the things he did.
I think 50 Cent was a good answer, but I also think that like rappers have been businessmen long before 50 Cent. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
no, I know.
Think about Jay-Z, like, you know, I mean, Jay-Z had his fingers in every pie, and like it wasn't like, oh, this is my, you know, rap lifestyle brand. It was completely off piece. Like he was like, I'm gonna make money. Do you know what I mean? And he, I feel like, if you'll forgive me, like he really gave a blueprint to people. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
right.
Very good.
But thank you for that, guys. That was an interesting. Let's discuss the final part of our show. This is called Let Me Explain. In this section, each member of the panel has been asked to present a hip-hop hot take. They're going to present it. They're going to allow time for the other panel members to digest it. And then they're going to follow up with, let me explain. And then provide their explanation as to rationalize their hot take around hip-hop. This week, we will let Danders take on the first slot here. Danders, what you got for us?
Cool. I have two answers, because the first one I came up with, I realized it wasn't really a hot take. So like, I just want to drop it real quick, have a moment, and then I'll give you a slightly hotter take. But I hate when rappers say "get it" after a punchline. For me, like it totally devalues the integrity of the punchline. Like you make yourself look like a simpleton. You offend your listeners. Do you know what I mean? Like for me, it's supposed to be not necessarily under the radar, but if they don't catch it, then like it's for the discovery in the future listens or whatever, for someone to point it out to you. Like it's supposed to be slick. Don't fucking break the fourth wall and insult me by saying "get it" after like some high tree fucking bar. Like it drives me nuts. Like, so I don't know if that's a hot take, but like I think, and I've seen some greats do it. Do you know what I mean? But it drives me mad. It doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, I was gonna go around with that, and I thought it would be a pretty short answer. So instead, my hot take is J. Cole hasn't been putting in work for 10 years.
Ooh.
Let me explain. Is that how it goes?
Get it?
Get it? No, listen. So you guys will know me as a big J. Cole fan, like a huge J. Cole fan. It was something we connected on a lot in our youth. And like, I just had to think about it recently, and you can't just drop a cold feature twice a year and maintain top like big three status. Do you know what I mean? Like so 2014 Forest Hills Drive's phenomenal album. You could say he still had some growing to do, some maturing to do. For Your Eyes Only, phenomenal album. And then ever since then, he's just been wanking and eating chips. Like, I mean, I just can't. Anything he does put out is weird or derivative, in my opinion. And like, I feel like he's skating on these fumes for years. Like, you can't keep skating on fumes and not putting out good shit. You know, it just doesn't work like that. So like, he had a moment where everyone was like, this guy is the truth. And then it just fizzled, and he's just been lapping it up now. Like, I'm still a fan. I'll still listen. Do you know what I mean? But like, yeah, that's my take.
I agree, Danders. Woo. I actually do agree. I think that in project-wise, his music has been so lackluster and derivative for the last however many years since For Your Eyes Only. I still enjoy a J. Cole feature here and there, but his subject matter has not changed since he started rapping, essentially.
Yeah.
I'm a big J. Cole fan as well, and it disappoints me.
I'm 100 with you. And like I said, his features are cold. They're not always cold. Like sometimes he's just like, I'm J. Cole, you're lucky to have me on a verse, blah, blah, blah. Something slightly corny. Do you know what I mean?
I'm the hottest rapper since something, you know?
Yeah.
I'm the hottest rapper since sliced bread. All these other rappers are toast.
Nice.
Get it?
Get it?
Get it? Dave, you seem stung. Give me your reaction.
No, I'd be inclined to agree. I do love a J. Cole feature. But yeah, you're probably like we need more. And you made a very very good point as well. You can't hold big tree status if you're dropping an album like once every fucking 10 years. Do you know, like,
I just want more smoke. Do you know what I mean? Like he's capable, and like I don't begrudge the guy for wanting a family life. I'm just saying you can't hold big three status if you're doing.
Look,
it.
I'll be honest here. The only out of the big three, the only artist that's consistently putting out heavy work is Drake. And I know it
That's a very hot take.
That could be your hot take.
it may not be amazing standard, but he has a formula and he goes with it, but it's consistent. It's consistent and he still puts up numbers.
But Kendrick's work is like consistently pieces of art that have been thoughtfully crafted, and when you get it, you get it. Whether it's once a year,
And Drake drops like 3 albums a year. It's like exhausting.
yes, and 70% of it is trash.
Yeah.
It's drivel.
70% is harsh.
Well, I mean, like most of it, if we're talking about derivative, like that's Drake's formula.
Yeah.
He finds an artist that's popping, basically copies them, gets them on a track with him, and then dumps them. And then moves on to the next new genre of music.
Formula works.
As
though.
another kid.
That's another kid, yeah. Yeah, I hear that. No, I'd be inclined to agree with you though, Danders. He needs to put out more. This is the whole thing about like when he dipped out of the beef with Kendrick and the boys. One of the common things you hear come up is like, J. Cole, I'm a fucking loaded gun. Anybody come for me, you're getting bowed. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you had the opportunity.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
Writing that down.
he had the opportunity and he didn't go off. But you know, I mean, he had his reasons. It just kind of initially peeved me. It's like you're always talking about how you are literally like you could literally body anybody. You had an opportunity to show that.
Yeah.
Do it.
He says he's that guy. Be that guy.
Yeah, and like that's like the only thing he says is that he's that guy anymore. Do you know what I mean? And like
Exactly. That's
That's the thing.
now, like you could say that Tupac and Biggie only had 2 albums apiece. Like I mean, but they were fully fledged at that time. Do you know what I mean? They had a much greater impact than any of the Cole records that we're talking about. And Cole is still alive and kicking and capable. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm just saying, like he could hang up his boots and be like, look, I had a great moment there. But if he's still calling himself Big Three, then he needs to fucking show it. Do you know what I mean?
And I love J. Cole, but was J. Cole ever
No.
really in the conversation?
No, I mean like he was coming up at the same time that.
But he's
that
been
the other
coming
two
up.
were.
If you're
He's
going off,
been
if you're
coming
going off
up.
his content, he's been coming
the come
up
up is
since he
over,
started.
boy. Yeah. No, look, like they were coming up as the next generation. The passing of the baton, the changing of the guard. That was the conversation that he was in when people were saying this is the next generation, and that was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's that chilling hip hop moment where J. Cole releases Workout on, I can't remember what album it was, but he released it because the label told him he needed a radio hit.
Sideline
Story, yeah.
Yeah. And then on the next album, he releases a song called Let Nas Down because he was like a Nas protege. And then Nas comes back and releases a song called Made Nas Proud. And at the end of Made Nas Proud, he lyrically says, I'm passing the crown to you. I'm passing the torch to you now. Take it. So like J. Cole got the East Coast torch passed to him from Nas.
Yeah. Which was funny because as well that there is that other chilling moment where you have Kendrick, Snoop Dogg, and a few other boys on stage, and they pass the torch and tell Kendrick to run with it, and he breaks down on stage and starts crying, which is also the same thing but West Coast, and also just as significant. But yeah, it's really impactful moment. All right, to see that.
And then you have that chilling moment when Drake gets the Toronto torch passed to him inside a Tim Hortons.
Yeah. It's just a double.
Is that what's on top of the CN Tower?
Okay, so thank you for that, Denders. That was interesting. But yeah, I think we're kind of in agreement with you on that hot take, to be fair, by the sounds of things.
More of a warm take, really.
Yeah, I'll jump in here in the middle with mine, if that's okay. So my let me explain is Tupac is overrated.
Ooh. To be honest, I haven't listened to a whole lot of Biggie and Tupac, to be honest. But from my opinion is I think that Biggie is overrated. I don't vibe with Biggie. One of my hot takes was actually going to be that I actually don't think Biggie's flow is that good. But then I decided not to because I don't listen to enough of it to be able to have an intelligible argument as to why that is. It just doesn't resonate with me.
Didn't want it to be too hot a take. No, like I'm with Dave. Like I think Pac was very influential for a lot of reasons, but actually when it comes to his rapping ability, I feel like he did the very best of generic rap. And generic is a strong word, but what I mean is like it was kind of what's the word for like mainstream? I don't know if it's mainstream, but like it was normal structure, I feel, roughly. Do you know what I mean? Where I felt like Biggie really fucked with the beat. He fucked the beat up. Do you know what I mean? Like he had in the middle of word rhymes and flows, and he just went whatever direction he could. And I think I watched some documentary of his sometime, and someone was like, you best describe him by realizing he's actually an R&B singer doing rap or hip hop. And he had a great voice, and that was how he kind of approached it. For me, like lyrically, he was a master. And like from a kid, if you look at like videos of him 13 and 17 years old, like spitting on the street, he was cold. Like he's just got a way with it that he doesn't even need to try. He just kind of spits. And I'm a big Biggie fan. Like Biggie would be one of my, top 5 for sure. So yeah, that is hot. That's a hot take, my D.
So let me explain. So just to be clear, I'm not in no way, shape or form saying Tupac wasn't an amazing figure and artist and rapper at the time. He obviously had huge impact in the culture, yada, yada, yada. But if we're talking about like top 5s, top 10s, I don't think he makes top 10 lyricist rapper. I don't think he makes top 10 in terms of hip hop songs. I don't think he makes top 10 in terms of albums. And the thing is, people will speak about him. A lot of people will speak about him like he was the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT. Tupac. Nobody's better than Tupac, albeit old heads, which is kind of what we are at this stage, older heads. And that's where the overrated section kind of comes in. I feel like he was great. He was good. I enjoyed a lot of his music, but he's not top 5. I don't even think he's top 10 of all time. So for that reason, I think he's overrated.
I'm reading from the same hymn sheet, Dave. Like I feel you could not deny his influence. That would be, of course, even sillier than talking about Nas. Like, I mean, he's been so influential, and he was a phenomenal rapper, like an incredible rapper, like extremely skilled, a great lyricist, and he had great flow. My point was that it was more conventional in its styling. Do you know what I mean? But also, like Dave was saying, in terms of like projects, any great song that he has, he's got like one verse on it and 2 or 3 features, and yeah, like things have changed a lot since then, and like in terms of how amazing other people have done. Like sometimes people get into these GOAT debates, and basketball is another great example where like people are only considering 2 or 3 parties that are part of the sort of typical conversation. They're not actually thinking about everyone else who's put in work since then, and a lot of people have been putting in work since Pac went away. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people, and like been making a meal of him, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm on your page. But like all love, do you know what I mean?
Oh no,
I think
of course,
he was great.
Of course, like Tupac is was phenomenal at the time.
But like I think you should be able to say the word overrated without it needing to be so divisive.
Course.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And this goes for Biggie and Tupac. Can anyone really be in a GOAT conversation with such a limited catalog of work available?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
I do agree at this stage.
I would rate Ready to Die over any Tupac project though.
But I mean, like, and Ready to Die could be a could be a perfect 10 for me. It's certainly close to me, but like
it's a non-skip. It's a non-skip album, 100%.
Like, Dave, this probably doesn't mean as much to you, but like, could you call Derrick Rose one of the greatest basketballers of all time? Do you know what I mean?
You were correct.
In his MVP season, yeah. So like, let me explain. He came into Chicago Bulls and as a rookie made MVP, and he was just batshit amazing. Like he was just so fucking good, like explosive. And he was plagued with injuries his entire career, really because he was so explosive and just landed on his ankles so much. And he's been a shell. Like he's had this kind of sad career, like the way Andy Murray just was amazing in his youth, and he's never come back from like a bad set of injuries. And it was the same with Derrick Rose. And like you can't, like, to be considered a greatest, you need the talent and the raw skill, but then you need to have put in work over time and won a few chips. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, and I think it's some combination of the two. Do you know what I mean? It's like luck, hard work, and amazing skill. Like, and so that's why no one ever has one clear answer, because people define it slightly differently. Like, you know,
maybe that's why we're looking at the likes of Eminem for the greatest of all time. The longevity, the skill, the talent, the depth, the impact, everything.
No, because Eminem just threw it all away in the last however many years.
The dude went to fucking rehab, man. He nearly died. He nearly died. He had to go through rehab and recover, and still he's able to come back to where he is now. Like, after
which is
all
trash.
that,
His music's so bad
it's
now.
not.
Whereas like someone like Nas possibly has the best hip hop album of all time and is still making incredible music.
Yeah, but I don't think he's come close to Illmatic since.
Well, I know that's definitely his best album, but he's had a very long and consistent career.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that also isn't the only thing that's defining greatest of all time. Now, I mean, like, it's funny because 10 years ago, I was telling people that Biggie's 2 albums were enough to put him in like top of the conversation. But now, 10 years later, I don't feel that way anymore. Like, but having said, like, Nas has got a lot of projects, but he hasn't been like in the public eye for that long. And you can say that like Eminem had some kind of sloppy projects, but then it's like, do you imagine the whole body of work as something bulletproof, and that's what like the greatest of all time has to be? Or is it like an arc, like a story of you know, down and then back up again and salvation and whatever?
There's no salvation for Eminem at this stage.
No, to be honest, I'm with you, Dino, in that like I couldn't give the greatest anymore to Eminem. Like, I think his influence is nearly unparalleled. Like, and I think he's phenomenal. And I think there was a time that I would have said it, but like for however many years and sort of dodgy projects I've heard, it's gone past that possibility for me personally. But Nas, like, the problem with Nas is almost that he never went away. Do you know what I mean? It's like he's been such a constant. Now, like, he'd be an interesting conversation to have for greatest of all time because he's so skilled, but like he's been like a steady background character for 20 years. Do you know what I mean?
But like, he wasn't really able to master anything commercially major.
Yeah, but that's got to be part of the conversation. Are you going to give A$AP Rock or
like MF Doom? I think is probably like one of my goats. But if you ask the average person, do you know who MF Doom is? They're gonna say no. Yeah,
I suppose. I mean, anybody who listens to rap is gonna, like, you don't necessarily need to be an MF Doom fan, but if you listen to hip hop, you're gonna at least have an idea of who he is, maybe.
But can you say that Doom? Like, I would love to say that Doom is the greatest of all time. But can you say without a level of commercial success? Like, thinking back about who did you say earlier, Dino? Who's your Billy Woods? Do you know what I mean? Like these guys who are phenomenal, like intelligent guys who we just love to listen to, and they just really chop it up. But like, if you're listening underground, you know, I feel like that has to be an element of the conversation, is how much success they were able to have as well.
But I think commercial success does have to have some sort of element in that conversation for sure. Like, because it's another side of music that some admittedly don't try and venture into, which is more than fair. I don't believe MF Doom tried to become commercially successful. He wasn't doing songs with Rihanna. Do you know what I mean? He wasn't trying to, but it's also a beast that's difficult to master. Not all rappers are able to do it consistently. So you look at how big B.O.B. was for about 3 years in the middle of the decade, and now it's just, where is he? Do you know what I mean? It's tough to keep that consistent and also still maintain a high level of lyricism and music making. All elements that I believe are important in that GOAT conversation. But look, we'll move on. Let's move on. Thank you for that, Thank you for let me explain. Dino, do you have one for us?
Yeah, look, I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. My hot take is that golden era hip hop is not better than modern day hip hop. It's just different. And you hear that argument all the time, mostly from, again, this is like an old head thing, or you hear this a lot from people who are trying to sound like some cultured rap aficionado, like, oh, I only listen to old hip hop. Today's hip hop sucks. It's just a dumb argument. You don't sound cultured. You don't sound like you know music. You sound like a fucking moron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are not this deep fucking intelligent music hip hop fan. You are just a fan of a very specific genre or subsection of hip hop, and you are stubborn and refuse to listen to new hip hop and music. And I think that's fair to be said. And
exactly,
anybody who has kind of hit me with that, oh, I only listen to new hip hop shit, or old hip hop, sorry, I don't listen to new hip hop. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. In my head, I'm thinking, you need to fucking,
you're a dumbass.
Yeah, you need to get out of that bucket, man.
It isn't even necessarily that they're a fan of it. They just want to be seen to be like the righteous ones. Do you know what I mean?
It's like signaling, and exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and it's like, if you were truly a fan of hip hop, you'd know that the type of music that you're talking about still exists today in a modern form. If you looked at all, you'd find it. But you haven't done that. Like, you haven't done any research.
And like, no one who's saying that, like exactly like you just said there, no one who's saying that thoroughly listened to old and new hip hop and listens to everything. Do you know what I mean? Because it would be silly to say that. I think maybe one difference between now and then, and like, you guys can check me on this, but like, there used to be a very kind of clear hierarchy of famous rappers who people were aware of, and now, because of the scope of the internet, like anyone can put out great work, like if they're willing to. And so there's just a huge landscape of rap out there at the moment, and I know there's some big hitters, but there used to be like 20 maybe, do you know what I mean, that were around that everyone had heard of, and that was consistent like all the way through even into the 2010s, but things are, to me, like a bit different now. But that doesn't mean that the skill isn't out there, that doesn't mean that the work isn't out there, the beats aren't out there. There's some great music out there.
Yeah. And like you said, Danders, the barrier to entry now is lower, which is a bit of a double-edged sword, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Yes, it means there's more trash music being released, but at the same time, more people have the opportunity to showcase their talents and to like push the music forward into spaces it hasn't been before. And it's not necessarily better or worse, it's new. And the genre of hip hop wouldn't have persisted till today if people did not innovate and push music forward.
I love your moment about more people are getting the opportunity. And like, there was obviously something kind of romantic about a musician who went for something that was hard to get into, and they just like couldn't do anything else. They had to be a musician, and they just like worked at it. That's, there's it feels like there's some kind of rose-tinted honor in that. But put that aside for a second, like, so many people who never get an opportunity could be the greatest of all time. And like, I really love to put, this will sound silly to you guys, but like, I love to put Formula One as an example. And the reason for that is, like, we love to say, people who talk about Formula One, they say these are the 20 fastest drivers in the world, and like, that might be true, but it's an incredibly rich person's sport.
100%.
And like, of the rich people who can afford to do it, it's only the small subset of the ones who were go-karting daily competitively since they were 5 years old who have a shot. And that's a small subset of the richest in the world. So like, it's a minute portion of people who are actually tested for the fastest in the world, like, title or whatever. And I think that, like, you could easily apply the same to music. Like, amazing musicians who'd just been sitting in the dark and didn't know how to make anything are now capable. They have the platform, and they're some of them are some of the best of all time. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, for sure, that's the barrier for entry thing. You couldn't have said it better. Double-edged sword. But it is giving people a platform to make incredible stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna end on one final point related to that, and that is that rapping fast does not automatically mean rapping well. And it's the same motherfuckers talking about, I only listen to 90s hip hop, that are saying this shit.
Yeah. And we leave it on that. We leave it there, because we do not have time to get into that. But look, anyway, thank you, Dino, for that. And I think that is enough rhythm and podcasting for this week. Thanks for kicking it with us. Remember, the beat goes on. Keep your voices loud and your dreams bigger. I've been your host, Davey the Don. Until next time, stay dope. Peace.
Welcome. I apologize to all the listeners out there. It's a bit of an inside joke, I think.
Which will become our inside joke collectively, listeners.
Yes, exactly. That's the idea. But anyways, welcome back to We Should Start a Podcast, the only podcast within a podcast. We just heard the podception of the week from our boy Davey, and we are very, very proud of him. It was great. And that great podcast was called Rhythm and Podcasting.
Did any of you pick up on the acronym?
Ramp.
You're some dickhead. Clearly rap.
Oh, rap. Oh, very good, Dave.
Oh,
That was very nice.
Oh.
That was like the podcasting equivalent of saying, get it?
yeah. Did you like it?
Classic.
That is very good. I enjoy that, Dave. You're a very clever boy.
I am.
And as always, we will critique the rap podcast, Rhythm and Podcasting, using a classic podcast rating system that we know and love based on 3 criteria. And these 3 criteria are: number 1, the concept or general idea of the show; number 2, the longevity. Do we think this show has legs to grow and blast off? And number 3, and maybe most importantly, is pod sauce. Pod sauce is the je ne sais quoi flair or extra spice to the podcast that makes it a winner. Pod sauce could be literally anything you enjoyed from the pod or something you think gave the pod some extra flavor. This week, our pod sauce segment is sponsored by Jay's Coleslaw. I believe this is J. Cole's new business venture. He's leaving the beef behind and getting into the salad game. Not really a sauce, J. Cole, but thanks for sponsoring. After discussing these 3 criteria, we will each give our final rating of this week's podcast. Will Rhythm and Podcasting be a smash hit, or should we trash it? Dave, I'll let you take us through this review section.
I just want to say beforehand, our sponsor will be quite unhappy when he hears Danders' hot take.
Yeah,
Just
I know.
shitting all over him.
Yikes.
Yeah, he's going to sue us, but not because he didn't actually sponsor it, because we're not calling him Big 3 anymore.
Jay's Coleslaw is going to be in the big 3 sauces, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What do we have? Heinz ketchup, Hellman's mayonnaise, and Jay's Coleslaw.
Yeah, coleslaw's a bit too similar to mayo, but I think you did a really good job of capturing like very, very ubiquitous brands there in the
Thank
sauce.
you.
In the
I like
sauce
that.
game.
Off the cuff.
Anyway, let's move on.
But like, no, first, Dave, sorry. Let's
Oh?
let's get into this a little bit. Is coleslaw a sauce?
No.
I've seen some arguments that it is.
No, it's not a sauce.
I mean, anything wet, like you could talk about gravies or I don't know, like I mean,
It's not a sauce. It's got solid. It's got solid bits
It's a salad.
of
It's a
stuff.
salad.
Exactly,
You're
it's a
right.
salad. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Dave, take it away. Take away
We
the
can move
review.
on now. We've settled that. Coleslaw, not a sauce. Anyway, concept. This is the general idea of the show. I will say ahead of this was because we're all hip hop fans. We joked about this before when we were initially discussing starting a podcast. It was an obvious one because we're all hip hop fans. Obviously, an easy one to go to is a hip hop or rap orientated podcast, but I feel like we had been trying to avoid the obvious one, which is more than fair. I am less creative than my 2 panel members. So anyway, concept. What do we think, Danders? Like it?
love the concept, Dave, for reasons you've just expounded upon.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it was just good fun. It's just good crack. I mean, there's plenty of let's not ruin the next category of judging, but yeah, no, just super fun. Something that obviously appeals to me. So yeah, no problems there.
Dino J, what are we thinking?
I'm in the same boat. Love the concept. We're obviously huge hip hop fans, as you said. So, we can talk about this shit for days on end. And we did.
Yeah.
It was long. I know, but I loved it. I loved the segments. Love the hot take segment. I think that's something that comes up in hip hop all the time. These so-called barbershop conversations,
Yeah. That would have been a good name for the segment, barbershop talk or something like that. Anyway.
Well, you said it, Dave. You're not as creative as us.
That is true. I thought Let Me Explain was nice though, because it was baked into the process of you give your hot take and then let me explain. I thought that was kind of cool. Anyway,
Yeah, that was good.
let's move on to longevity. This show, does it have legs to grow? We'll start with you, Dino, this time.
Oh, for sure. Plenty to talk about. I mean, as we demonstrated,
Yeah.
we can go on and on about this. the conversation changes so frequently as well, not just about the GOAT and the big three or whatever, but just music in general moves at such a quick pace of evolution that there's endless topics to talk about.
It's like a full-time, it would be like a full-time job hosting, hosting any kind of podcast, like a full-time job, as Dino knows well. But yeah, for hip hop and music, trying to follow the culture, follow the landscape consistently, be on top of new music, which is evidently every other fucking day at this rate. It's definitely like a full-time job, but it will be a fun full-time job to execute effectively.
You could be the next Joe Budden.
Be the next Joe Biden.
That's who.
Joe Biden. What about Joey Budden Deschanel?
That's a character I want to see.
Yeah. I don't have anything up and up, man. I'll
work on it for next week.
Danders, what do you think?
Yeah, longevity, 100%. Like, it isn't even that you're just trying to keep up with new releases. Like, you've got more back catalog. Like, even if there was never another hip hop track made from this day on, you could still make a daily podcast from between us three discussing hip hop for the rest of our lives and still not run out of material. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, there's definitely room there for sure.
Pod sauce, the je ne sais quoi. We'll start with you, Danders. What was your pod sauce from this week's pod?
My hot sauce was your hot takes, baby boy. I liked that segment. I thought, like, if you're going to have a hip hop talks show, like, for reasons Dino said in the first round, that's a fun round to have. That's the meat what everyone really gets into about the hip hop culture is the, the comparisons and the trash talking. And that was a lot of fun.
You have to have that. You have to have, like, hard critiques. You have to open those conversations. I think it's very important because it's such a wide genre with so many subgenres and so many elements attached to it. Dino, pod sauce.
My pod sauce of the week is the first segment. I just liked that little hip hop update. I liked getting new music recommendations on a Thursday/Friday. I wake up in the morning and I go on to Tidal, my music streaming service of choice, and I immediately go check out the new albums that have dropped. And there were some there that you mentioned, Dave, that I did not know even dropped. So some good recommendations for me to check out.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. It was definitely a fun one to put together. So let's go. Let's give this bitch a rating. Rhythm and podcasting. Dino. Smash it, trash it. What are we thinking?
Dave, I gotta say, the takes were hot. The music is hot. The hosts, definitely hot. It's a smash hit from me.
Let's go. Love to hear it. Thank you, Dino. Danders, what are we thinking? Smash it, trash it, anything else?
I didn't know we had other options.
Freeform, it's whatever you want to be, Danders.
Well, like, I'm sure there's a lot of hip hop podcasts out there. R&P, rhythm and podcasting, maybe a little bit on the nose. But having said all that, I think it might be the best podcast of all time. It's a smash hit from me.
Best podcast of all time.
Well, I mean, you heard the conversation earlier. We got to put in work for many years to maintain the moniker.
Definitely the most influential podcast of all time.
Yeah, I think so.
You could say that. You could say that.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. It was definitely...
This podcast is just like Tupac. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, like, dies very young.
Bald.
That's so stupid.
You heard it here first, guys. That Rhythm and Podcasting is a certifiable bald hit. It is a smash hit. I can't believe it. Wow. The baldest podcast to be so popular. But at WSSAP, we like to hedge our bets. So until we can get this bald boy into production, we will continue plotting, pitching, and of course podding until we are certain we have the next pod smash on our hands. Any closing statements? No. We'll end it on that. So, wow. You said all that needs to be said. You can listen out for Rhythm and Podcasting coming soon exclusively to the decidedly not so saucy Jay's Coleslaw podcast app. If you think that we should start Rhythm in Podcasting, please rate, subscribe, and let us know at WSSAP Official on Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter. We are inches away from a huge idea, and you can tune in again next week to hear us pitch that next hit show, and you can probably hear another Joey Deschanel impression if you're lucky.
Joey Budden Deschanel, please.
Yeah, that's the one I'm working on for next week. And I really think that podcast idea and that impression are going to send us into the golden era of podcasting.
Yes, sir.
What do you think, guys?
Oh, yes.
Maybe if we just like start talking really fast, it'll make us good podcasters. Just like Eminem.
Maybe.
We should let the listeners know that there are more Joey Deschanel impressions behind the Patreon. So if you want to subscribe, you can get exclusive impressions.
Forget about it.
terribly racist, which is why you need to pay for that kind of racism.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, until the next Joey Deschanel impression, please keep your ear to the grindstone. And when you're feeling like the rhythm of the world just isn't moving to your beat, remember the inspirational poetic prose of the notorious B.I.G. We can't change the world until we change our podcast. See you next time.